hold a public hearing here. This is the public hearing on, we got two items on second reading, and we'll do a public hearing on these tonight. This is scheduled for this time. I'll read the header. The Board of Commissioners of the City of Mount Juliet will consider the following on second and final reading on August 12th, 2024 at 6:15. There's two items on this. An ordinance to amend the land use map and plan for the City of Mount Juliet, an ordinance to rezone the property known as the Smiley property located at 815 John Wright Road, map 76, parcel 59, from RS 40 to RS 30. The public is invited to attend and comment. So if you were here and have any comments that you'd like to make on those two items, I would invite you to come forward, give your name and address for the record, and we'll give you the floor for 3 minutes. Oh, don't everybody rush at once. All right. Seeing none for comments at the public hearing, I'm going to close the public hearing. We'll reconvene at 6:30. We'll have citizen comments there. So if you have comments on any other item, we'll open the floor to you at that point. So for now, we will adjourn the public hearing and reconvene at 6:30.
We're here. That's all that matters. Hey, just gotta call a meeting.
Good evening, everyone. Today is August 12th, and I hereby call the meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order. We do have a quorum present pursuant to City Code 62210, and we'll proceed with the conducting of the business of the City of Mount Juliet. So I'll start off by saying thank you, everyone, for being here. Coming out to the meeting for the commission. My name is Mayor James Manus, and on behalf of the commission and staff, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you here tonight. Tennessee law gives you and every Tennessean the right to attend the city commission meetings and observe how the government is doing business, and we appreciate each and every one of you taking times out of your personal schedule to be here tonight and see how your government works. So with that, our first order of business is the setting of our agenda. We have wire baskets on each side. There's agenda copies out there. That's going to be kind of the guide for the way we conduct the meeting tonight. They're out. Oh, it's a hot ticket. We can round up some more, but we have agendas available, and also have them available online if you'd like to. So without objection, I'd like to set the agenda as published with the one exception. If there's no objections, I would like to move item number 14B. It's the item that addresses our dispatchers that are so happily sitting back there tonight. I'd like to move that to the beginning of the agenda if there's no objections. Hearing no objections, we'll set the agenda as published with the exception of the move from 14B to the beginning. The next order of business is our invocation. I'd invite Reverend Suey, if he would, come forward to the podium and lead us in our invocation and prayer.
Sure thing. Let's pray. God, we seek your will and we seek your wisdom. We ask that you would bless our leaders now, that in every decision that's made here this evening, it would be realized that each decision is just one act of kindness at a time, that the goal is one act of kindness at a time. God, we thank you that you have blessed our community with genuine love and genuine folks. And we ask that you would continue to do so. In Jesus' name, amen.
Our next item, we are fortunate enough to have a group with us here tonight, and it's Troop 934, and they have been gracious enough to agree to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask them if they'll come up to the front here around the podium, just crowd around it, and lead us in the pledge.
Please remove all non-religious headgear. Scout salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, thank you. Troop 934, they're here to earn their merit badge on communications and citizenship in the community. So I asked them, and they graciously agreed to lead us in the pledge. So they're doing a little work for those badges here tonight. And we thank you for being here. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. We have one set of minutes from our last meeting on July 22nd. Is there a motion?
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any questions, comments, or changes on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The minutes carry. Next item on our agenda is our citizen comments. Citizen comments is limited to 3 minutes pursuant to City Code, Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 220 of our City Code. What we'll do is we'll open the floor up here. I'll invite you to come forward, give your name and address for the record. This is your opportunity to address the board. Unlike the Planning Commission, we do not take comments on each item. This is the opportunity to address the Board of Commissioners tonight. And on top of that, as an extra bonus, I just believe I saw some more agendas being put in the baskets if you want a copy of that to follow along. So with that, I'll open the floor, ask for your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Eric Fisher. I live at 435 Whitley Way in the Nicholsville neighborhood. Been to these meetings a few times, spoke about the Elliott's Reserve property that's planned to go behind our houses or around or behind our neighborhood. There's a lot of concerns in terms of blasting within 40 feet of existing homes, drainage concerns as well. The existing drainage structure, it floods into Nicholsville currently from the land, and people that back up to that property now already have issues with flooding in their backyard, and it's only going to become worse with this project if it's not, if the current preliminary development plan is not addressed due to the current lack of drainage design. Another concern that we have is the buffers. So I think right now there's a 20-foot landscape buffer that's planned. The townhomes are currently allowed to be 20 feet from the property line. So the townhomes will basically be right on top of that buffer, which would be 20 feet from our property. A good number of the houses don't have any mature trees behind it right now. And we're going to look at the back of a wall of townhomes, which is not good, especially for the area that we're in. We're relatively high in neighborhood, nice homes, and it's going to lower our property values there. So overall, I mean, right now, the current preliminary master development plan is lacking in a lot of information, and we'd like to address that here today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm sure you're sick of seeing my face. Stephanie Beamer, 513 Montrose Drive, Nicholasville. Fourth meeting I've been at already with planning and the commissioners. We keep changing our work schedule because this keeps being deferred. 26 years of engineering construction experience. I had the conceptual plans reviewed by 6 separate engineering firms, with each person that was reviewing with over 20 years experience and highly regarded in the Tennessee market for their engineering experience. We have consistent, they both all came up with consistent conclusions of the concerns that Eric has addressed, which I will address also. To begin, we've already sent you more than 250 concerned citizen signatures. You guys received those via email. We have also seen the effects of irresponsible development, evidenced by the issues that we sent you regarding Nicholasville community developer and engineering design, including the drainage and the traffic. We feel the process is flawed, as you guys are receiving conceptual plans that are really not fully developed and approving these plans. We've seen that at our community meeting. Commissioner Justice had said, "Where's your clubhouse?" And the developer put it in a pavilion. So these are the kinds of things that are taken away after you guys approve plans. In addition, we have all the flooding. They are planning on putting some of the drainage to Lebanon Road. We saw what happened with True Rescue a couple of weeks ago with the flooding there. In addition to all the potholes and the drainage on Lebanon Road, there's no plans for the next 10 years by TDOT to make improvements to Lebanon Road. You've seen a lot of the pictures and video evidence from many of our homeowners that are here tonight about all the flooding concerns that were designed by the designer of Nicholasville, which is the current design firm for Elliott's Reserve. We have also have concerns about the rock blasting within 40 to 100 feet of blasting areas. We've consulted a couple law firms. There's very minimal chance for us to recoup any of the costs by damages. And a lot of these pre-blast surveys are put into effect to protect the developers and the construction firms. With these homes being marketed for 600 to 800 townhomes, we were told that they will have basements, some of them, and that will require even more blasting, which is more of a concern, even at a half blast. We also have the area full of sinkholes, and blasting could cause more sinkholes. As stated previously, the roadway is really short going up there. There's going to be ADA concerns. I can't see a wheelchair getting up and down a sidewalk at a 15 to 20% grade. Snow and ice, fire trucks, our first responders that will have trouble getting up there. I know snow and ice has been dismissed, but it does happen here. We had 6 inches in 2022. I would bring up the environmental concerns. They were dismissed previously, but there's various community members here that have concerns about the environmental concerns, including the stormwater runoff that we contacted TDEC about, in addition to the wildlife. We understand the importance of development. Mount Juliet is growing, but we need to do it responsibly. And we look to you guys as our elected officials to look out for your community members. We are here looking for you to represent us as your community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm Tyler Moore, 517 Montrose Drive in Nicholsville community. So a little bit about me. I was an Air Force veteran. I used to fix C-130 aircraft in the Air Force. I served my country. I love this country, and I love the city of Mount Juliet. I'm a devoted husband to a beautiful wife who's way out of my league, and I'm a devoted father to two beautiful kids who attend the elementary schools here in this city. We previously had Commissioner Ray Justice come to our development. He spoke with us as well as the developer to put our concerns at ease. We did address the flooding issues, which we have tremendous amounts of pooling water, especially towards the townhomes. They have pools in their backyard that's only being held back by a fence at this point. My own yard, I have 6 inches of standing water, and that's with French drains that do nothing to stop it. If you look around during the rainstorms, we have actual waterfalls, which I have photos of. I actually emailed you guys on the 23rd of July offering to send you those photos, and to this day, I didn't get a response from any of you. So I was offering to send those, and I can still send those if you do need a copy of them. As for the blasting that is happening right in our backyard, I was told not to worry about it because City of Mount Juliet does half blasting. When I asked what that meant, I was greeted with a laugh and an I don't know. So I still don't know what that means, and it didn't really put my concerns to rest to that regard. Furthermore, I was also told not to worry about it because insurance from the developer would cover that. But I worked in insurance, and oftentimes earth movement is excluded in those. So if somebody can show me an exclusions page, I would be happy to look at that and see if that's something that is or is not excluded. And I would love to see a copy of that if that's available as well. As Stephanie has said, we have not only the water issues, but True Rescue has the water issues. And the same engineering firm that did our neighborhood is designing this one as well. And as far as I'm aware, they're going to send all their water our direction. And I've already made it clear that it's pretty bad. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. So thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for the Board of Commissioners?
Howdy, this is Justin Sayre, 15 Collette Court in Nicholsville. I will just say that Tyler, Eric, and Stephanie all have said all of my concerns, or at least they've echoed most of them. My additional concerns are who is accountable from the city, who is accountable from the developer, how are they accountable, and if they are unable to deliver, what are the repercussions? What do we get back? I don't think that that is clear to me. I'm not fully read in. I'm not fully versed on the topic. But based on what I've viewed, read, and seen online, it is not clear to me what will be done if the preliminary or subsequent approved development goes in and fails to meet expectations. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am Michelle Elliott Howell, 5101 Mountain Brook Circle. I'm the owner trustee of 12440 Lebanon Road, the location of the proposed Elliott's Reserve development. My family's owned this property for over 50 years. I grew up on this land. I've lived in Mount Juliet or close proximity for 55 years. I love this community and will always consider Mount Juliet to be my home. When I was a kid, I recall Lebanon Road being 2 lanes with only 1 stoplight and only 2 places nearby to eat. Super Burger and Dairy Queen. Y'all remember Super Burger? Mount Juliet has changed, and change is inevitable. When the Nicholsville development was first proposed, we were not excited. Our first thoughts were loss of privacy, loss of natural wildlife, blasting, construction for years, trespassing, easement encroachment, and all of these things did happen. But we adjusted. Nicholsville is a beautiful subdivision and a definite asset to the community, as I believe Elliott's Reserve will be as well. Our family did not come forward and oppose the Nicholsville development. We didn't oppose because we respected the right of the current owners to do as they saw fit with their own property. And because we chose to embrace the city's vision of growth and prosperity. Our property has been for sale for years. I've previously had several letters of intent and 2 contracts. Developers from New York, Colorado, Florida, interest anywhere from apartments, assisted living, storage facilities, townhomes. I've tried to be respectful of Nicholsville, assuming that they would not like to see a commercial building and a giant parking lot in their backyards. When Ben Forcum, a local Mount Juliet developer, came forward proposing luxury townhomes and roadfront commercial development, utilizing a local engineer and a local architect, it seemed to be a great fit. Better than an out-of-state developer who swoops in, completes a project, and disappears into thin air. Elliott's Reserve will be luxury townhomes. The amazing architectural design was formatted to blend well next to the adjacent community. According to the city planners before, this project not only meets but exceeds the requirements put in place. While I am truly sympathetic to the flooding issues that the Nicholsville residents have experienced, I respectfully ask that this development not be criticized or punished for what their developer did or did not do to cause or warranty their problems. The latest Elliott family member to reside in our home, our family property, fought a long, hard battle with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Sadly, my brother has passed away. Our family would like closure. We'd like to move forward, open a new chapter, and possibly be a part of something great while preserving and honoring our family name. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for citizen comments? Name and address for the record, please.
Nick Polk, 414 Silver Springs Lane. I hate to break the townhome momentum, but I'm submitting a statement regarding the resolution passed on July 22nd, 24 in support of House Joint Resolution 803, a resolution that promotes the month of July as a month to promote specifically Christian prayer. And as a Tennessean, a citizen of Mount Juliet, and a lifelong Christian who has been attending and tithing at a church in Mount Juliet since 2019, at others my entire adult life, and throughout my childhood, I'm respectfully requesting that Mount Juliet City Commission rescind their official support of the House Joint Resolution. I recognize the good intention of our commissioners, and I'm not one to reject support for prayer, as I'm a Christian and I pray daily. But as we're a nation that prides itself on the First Amendment as being one of our pillars of rights, the official promotion of solely Christian prayer rides the line of entering into violating the rights of others of different faiths, as well as those who profess no faith. And as a Christian and an American, I want to see people from all faiths, as well as none, be promoted and supported in our communities, not just one faith. So my fear is that this resolution will harm those who are not Christian, as well as those of us who are Christians who support this resolution, as it will make those who are not Christian feel unwelcome and therefore hurt the development of our city through business, services, government, and neighborliness. In the name of one of Jesus Christ's greatest virtues, hospitality, I again respectfully ask the Commission to rescind their official resolution to support House Joint Resolution 803. Development related, I am a big Tim Hortons fan, and I would love to know how that's going. So thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Jake Porter, CSDG, 2305 Klein Avenue, Nashville. We're here as the engineer for the Elliott Reserve project, and I'd like to yield my time to later on answer all the questions that have been asked. And I know you all have a couple additional comments and questions as well. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we've written some notes here. Anyone else?
Tyler Antonakis, 433 Whitley Way, Nicholsville again. Good to see y'all all for the third or fourth time here. But okay, so I'm not going to rehash everything they've talked about. I got thinking about some things over the last couple of weeks in regards to this, and you're right in terms of getting to sell your land and have it developed and being a local thing. That's great. But again, it has to be done responsibly and right. And I got thinking about it. I was like, if the commercial piece was not in this, would the townhome project pass the same way? Because I feel like it would be criticized a little heavier from a standpoint of a 600 to 800,000 unit townhome. It just makes no sense in this town in terms of where the real estate market is. It would take it's a big gamble. I mean, that would be a giant gamble for anybody, and I don't think it's the true nature behind it. This project can be done in a certain way that benefits everybody. It can benefit you as the seller, benefit Ben, benefit the city, and it can benefit the community. But it can't be jam-packed. It can't be cramped. It can't have unrealistic expectations. It's got to be thought out. It's got to be done properly and responsibly. If it is, it will work. But how it's set up now, all it'll do is it will reduce my home's value, for one, and my neighbor is right around on the edge of it. And two, it's just going to cause problems for everybody. And you just see it coming. And I think everybody in this room knows those issues by now, but it's going to be an issue. If we can do it responsibly, I think it's a great idea, but it has to be done a certain way. And Ray said there's some changes to the drainage that obviously we have not seen yet, but it sounds like it's a good starting point. There's things with the buffer or the design or where you put them, realistic expectations on the price of the townhomes and what they need to be and how many you can do. It just needs to be thought out a little more and a little clearer. And I ask y'all to really, really criticize it as if the commercial piece is not there. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else to address the Board of Commissioners?
Hi, my name's David Houck. Or is that good? Okay. 3004 Nicholsville. I'm not going to rehash all the comments that everyone has stated much better than I possibly could. But as a resident, I want to come show my support for my fellow neighbors because I believe in everything that they're bringing up. And just want to add an additional point. When it comes to something of this magnitude, when this many of your residents are concerned about it, and taking time to come here and voice that concern to you, I would say at the very least it warrants, more, if not significantly more, due diligence on the part of you to make sure that you're making the best choices for what will likely be a long-standing impact on the community. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, we will close citizen comments and we will continue forward with the commissioner reports and comments. And with that, I'll recognize Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Mayor. I only have one report, and just like to say that my heart and our prayers go out to the Bilbrey family, the Hughes family, and the Moss family for the loss of Sherry Bilbrey. Sherry was 77 years old. She was a lifelong resident of Mount Juliet, was instrumental in bringing the Big Brothers program. I think I saw Chris Sorey in the house a little bit earlier. Chris worked with Sherry for many years, and the Big Brothers program that Sherry helped run was instrumental in bringing toys to underprivileged. I mean, so many different projects that they did and were successful at. And so, her loss is a loss to our community. As I said, she was 77 years old. Growing up, her dad, my dad were friends, and, we would spend our time over there at that house. And it's just so sad when you lose anybody, obviously. And so, if you would keep the family in your prayers, and that'll be my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. With that, we'll recognize Vice Mayor Trevette.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for coming out tonight. I love seeing a packed room. It means that we've got a lot of participation. Thank you to the troops that also come out tonight to also earn another badge on that belt of yours. It's great to see the students out, the next chapter of our generation. So appreciate everybody being there. As always, we always look at, different projects that come through the city. And I will tell you, as we look at hearing some of these past residents that have concurrent issues, right, and their properties and cost thousands, if not, tens of thousands of dollars to get corrected. And then there's another project, there's a possibility we could be able to help release some of that pressure from either bad designs or just maybe the way that, Mother Nature tends to, flow water. So it's just always one of those very hard challenges to be able to try and find that middle balance, right? Where, the existing homeowner or the landowner is allowed to do what they want, which is if they choose to build on it or sell on it, then they've got that right. And also the existing residents that are also now being affected. So I hear you every time there's a project that comes out, we think about these things. How do we make it where that even balance is? So a lot of notes are, being taken up here and a lot of discussions behind the scenes. So hopefully, some of this water runoff and traffic and everything else can be improved. And we can go from there. So, excuse me. A couple more things, with our great city comes with a lot of activities. I just want to give some quick updates because, we get these emails and maybe I do want to back up a little bit. I apologize for not being here at the last meeting. All of us up here, we all do work full time. And then this is, just as important. And I missed it. So I want to apologize to the folks for missing last meeting, but did have to deal with work on emergency out of town situations. So my apologies. To circle back on my agenda though, but with our parks here, they do a great job at pulling the community together, right? And Mr. Rocky Lee and his team, they just got some highlights that they throw out a lot of emails and a lot of updates. And I just want to kind of highlight that real quick just for us because as a city, there's so many different avenues, connections, communication. Our PI officer is always out there promoting things. But, for all of the dates, please, from father-daughter dance to the splash pad, to the toddlers park that's getting ready to be open. Our parks team, our city, it's growing fast and we're trying to keep up with all of this population and also still to be able to make sure that our students and toddlers still have a great place to have fun at. So please check out the parks website for all the great events that's out there. Try to make sure we leave on a positive note tonight. And one last thing, just please, as school is kicked off, we are all still trying to get back into the groove of things when it comes to safety. So our kids are still going, on and off school buses. There's new drivers on the road. Please just make sure that, that you talk it over with your students, new drivers, be aware of what's going on out there. I'm up in the morning seeing all the traffic. People are rushing to work and they're still driving around school buses. We are communicating with the police department. They're very stern on this, so please talk it over with new drivers and even the adults. If you're in a rush, you're in a rush for a reason. So just slow down. So with that, Mayor, that concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, and with that, we'll recognize Commissioner Mullally.
Thank you. Just want to thank everyone again for coming out and to provide your views. And, I certainly understand you want to protect your properties. And I have been where you are, and I really appreciate you continuing to come out. And emails, and I apologize, I'm behind on responses. I do get your emails. I am since before my cruise, and so I'm even more behind since after the cruise, but I do get your emails, and I appreciate them. September 7th is our third annual Celebrate Mount Juliet Day at Charlie Daniels Park. It's from 4 to 9 p.m. Put my glasses on. It started off because of our 50th year as a city. And so this is the third year we're celebrating. There'll be plenty of activities for kids, lots of vendors, live music, food trucks, and a car show again. So bring the family for a day of fun, and you can follow Mount Juliet Parks and Rec on Facebook, and they've posted the flyers and all the details, or just call them and they'll give you the details, especially on the car show. You know, if you have a nice old car you want to show off, that would be great. Let's see. As you know, we are planning on building a rec center on Clemens. So if you don't know where that is, this is Mount Juliet Road, Golden Bear, and there's a road in the middle. It's called Clemens. We have property over there, the city does, and it's our plan to build a rec center and some outdoor courts and things like that. So we've been holding community meetings to get community feedback on, you know, what you suggestions, what you might want to see, and things like that. So we're having another one on September 10th. That's a Tuesday, from 6:30 to 7:30 at Just Love Coffee, and they're next to the Exxon on Belinda Parkway. So if you would like to join us and give your input on a rec center or outdoor courts, please come to that. And just want to give my grandson a shout out. He's turning 5 on Wednesday, and he just started kindergarten. So shout out to him. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Mullally. For my comments, I'll have to start off by saying I'm going to ask our deputy city manager if you would poll the commission. I'd like to get us all together for an executive session to sit down with our new attorneys, our current attorney, our new attorney, and our current attorneys, and go over some of the stuff. We got a few items that are pending court cases that it's a good time, I think, to catch everybody up on it. And I think it's also a good time to make sure we got all of our I's dotted, all the T's crossed on any public records requests that are outstanding or any questions about that. So I just asked you to poll the body on that one and find out a date that we can get that arranged. Other thing, and if you would just indulge me for a moment, I'm going to read this if there's no objections to reading, but this is a statement from our fire chief, and he is in Dallas today as part of a training session that he's in, so he couldn't be here tonight, but he called me earlier and asked me to make mention of this, so I thought it would be appropriate to read the statement that he's released. It says, a year ago today, we experienced the largest and most significant fire in the history of Mount Juliet. The Glass Creek's apartment fire displaced residents from 24 apartments. Even more significant was the fact that Lieutenant Kenny Hudson was critically injured during the fire. I am extremely proud of the dedication and resilience of our personnel. They truly exemplify our department's vision of service, dedication, and excellence. I am also so impressed and inspired by the courage and the strength of Lieutenant Kenny Hudson and his family. They are truly an amazing family. I'm proud to report that within a few months of the fire, Lieutenant Hudson transitioned to restricted duty on daytime schedule, then to restricted duty on his shift schedule, and then back to a full duty shift a few months ago. He is currently serving as lieutenant on Engine 2 B shift with no restrictions. The list of people to thank for their help both during and following the fire is too extensive to list, but 2 organizations stepped up above all others, and the Mount Juliet Police Department is the first, and Mount Juliet for Hope is the second. Our thoughts and prayers continue for all of those who were affected by the fire, but especially for those who may still be recovering from this tragic event. And this is authored by Fire Chief Mark Folks. So I think that's a day that a lot of us who've lived here in this community are going to remember. As mayor, I've got to say I'm extremely proud of the way everybody conducted themselves that day, the way they come together, the fire department, the police department. I'm grateful for this board for supporting the fire department and seeing that we have a first-class department. We haven't always been able to say that in the city, but I want to commend everyone at this board for stepping up and making sure that they have the resources that they needed to make that happen. I also have to thank the community for coming together and rallying together around the families. We had everything. I just say it on the ground. It was an impressive feat to see the chaplains through the police department and fire department come together and be there to service those families that were displaced. And everybody, like the chief says, there's too many to mention here, but they were just so many that stood out to me on that day for their actions. Everything from Chick-fil-A having sandwiches there to all the organizations that rallied together to make it happen. I'm so impressed with this community. Last note on this, we also have Miss Amy Breedlove here in the audience. Would you stand up for just a moment? Amy is executive director of Mount Juliet for Hope, and this organization has worked so hard to be there any times of need or support this community may have. So I just want to publicly say thank you for everything. And with and there's two others that I will quickly mention. When you have a fire like that, you don't put fire out if you don't have a good utility district like West Wilson Utility District. I forget the number of gallons they told us, and they could account for the gallons too, that it took to combat that fire and the service that they provide. And the other group is sitting right back there in black, and that's our dispatchers that were coordinating all the stuff behind the scenes. We have a resolution here tonight to recognize them in a special way as well. But all of those are things no one thinks about when it comes to doing this stuff. It's the persons behind the scenes, the dispatchers, the utilities that work together. Folks, it takes years of planning and careful coordination to make sure something like that's able to be pulled off in the manner it was. And with that, I'll conclude my comments. I rarely make comments up here, but I will conclude my comments tonight, and I'll recognize our city manager for his.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks, everybody, for coming out tonight. The commission asked me earlier, we were talking, and asked if I could ask a group of people to stand up, and that'd be our veterans, our law enforcement officers, any firefighters, paramedics, and Troop 934. Okay. Dispatchers there in the back, our communications folks. We want to give you all a shout out. First and foremost, our veterans for keeping our country safe and for being such good patriots. You're recognized daily, and that's a big reason why Mount Juliet's such an awesome place to live. Dispatchers in the back, and I get you all to stand up as well. As an old police chief, I can tell you first and foremost, and Miss Jennifer Hamlin's sitting up here, and Commissioner Justice will tell you the same. Nothing happens in police work until it goes through the police dispatch, and I think that's why this elected body and the mayor wants to recognize you all, is because everything that happens in the police department again goes through that dispatch section. 9 out of 10 shows you watch on TV, what's the first person that gets called an emergency? On those shows, 911, what's your emergency? That's what you hear, right? Those voices on the other end is that lifeline between you and them. So that's why this elected bodies recognize you. Thank you for your service. And these youngsters you see stand up, Troop 934, that enter all these badges. One of the most important badges you'll earn in your lifetime is, I believe it's which badge? Eagle. Is that it? The Eagle, right? And there's only a handful of people have done that. I'm not one. I'd love to have done that, but unfortunately we had one car, not enough money to get to the meetings. I just want to thank you all on behalf of the entire city of Mount Juliet, this elected body and staff, for everything that you do, because we couldn't do it without you. And every citizen in this room, whether or not you're a veteran or emergency service worker or not, thank you for what you do. Thank you so much. Thank y'all. Let's stand up and talk about 40-something thousand people, and not counting the other 330 or 40 million people in this country. Thank you for what you do, because that's the fabric of the community. Our number one saying up here is, what makes a community is the people. Without people, it's not a home, it's just a city with a bunch of buildings. You're what makes a community so special. And it sounds hokey, but we need more hokey. And speaking of heartfelt condolences, I agree with the commission when we talk about Miss Pilgrim. I met her 35 years ago, and I reached out to her sisters this weekend, and my comment to them was, you can't ever ease somebody's pain when they lose a family member like that, especially somebody's been on this planet for 77 years. But I basically said to the other two sisters, well done to your mom and dad on raising 3 absolutely wonderful and fabulous daughters, because every one of them were multi-talented. And to see the heart that Miss Bilbrey poured into this community, and probably the children's lives that she touched through the Christmas events. And I think Mr. Porter's in the room, and through the Rotary Club and you name it, she just did some phenomenal stuff. So it's a huge loss for our community. And unfortunately, we lose lots of great citizens every day in this community. So I'll ask for you, gentlemen, to mention prayer, continue to pray for our country, continue to pray for our community and one another. And Mayor, that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, sir. And with that, we'll move to the business portion of our agenda. We have at set agenda, we changed the first reading to be 14B. So if you're following along, you want to flip to the last page of the agenda. So 14B is a resolution of the City of Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners, Wilson County, Tennessee, requesting all public safety telecommunicators in Mount Juliet be elevated to the status of first responder. Have a motion and second. The item's on the floor. I will start out by saying this. There is some work in Congress to make this happen, but as the resolution says, we're not going to wait for this. Wilson County is taking similar action with theirs. And so I'm happy to have this on the floor here tonight for consideration. So I'll open the floor if anybody has any comments. Mr. Justice.
I see bright smiling faces back there. Some of you folks don't even see the light of day for 8 hours as you sit in that room. And I will tell you that in 1981, my first job in law enforcement I was a dispatcher. And through the years dealing with dispatchers, I learned some very, very important lessons. One of them is you'd never tick off the dispatcher because you'll wind up answering all the dog calls for the next week and a half if you do. So I did learn that. I learned also, though, that my life as a police officer and my life as a resident was in the hands of the dispatchers. If it weren't for you, nothing starts. You are the beginning of everything that is good at the Mount Juliet Police Department, and never, ever forget that. So thank you for what you do.
With that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of 14B, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 14B passes. Okay, if you're following along, we're going to go back to the beginning and pick up the consent agenda, and that'll be on page 2. We'll start with 11A, an ordinance amending the land use map and plan of the City of Mount Juliet, and 11B, which is an ordinance to rezone the property known as the Smiley property located at 815 John Wright Road, map 76, parcel 59, from RS40 to RS30. I have a motion to separate. Is there any objection to separating the consent? Hearing none, we will consider 11A, an ordinance to amend the land use map and plan of the City of Mount Juliet. I'll make a motion. And second, any questions or comments on 11A? All in favor of 11A, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
I'm sorry. There's a change that needs to be made if we can, if that's possible.
Okay.
That was the reason I was wanting to take it. I apologize. I'm sorry to take it off the consent agenda.
If there is no objections, I'll make a motion to reconsider 11A.
Second.
Hearing no objections on that, 11A, an ordinance to amend the land use plan of the City of Mount Juliet. I'll make a motion. And a second. All right, Commissioner Justice, you are recognized, sir.
And I apologize for that. One of the items that we need to consider here in the land use plan is there was a piece on there at the very bottom, and Jennifer, I've lost it. Have you got it? On the bottom of that is the northern portion, number 18. If you look at it, it says the northern portion of Cedar Creek Yacht Club, and it shows that there's no parcel data, and they're showing that there's no future land use. The issue that we've got there is that there being no parcel data is because it's Corps of Engineers property, but it's also private property that is attached to is where the Cedar Creek Yacht Club is. So what I would like to do is to amend this and make it the same land use that we changed the City Creek Marina to, which is on the opposite side of the creek. But I'm not sure we can do that without having some parcel data. How does that work? Jennifer's actually talking to the attorney now.
Yeah, that's a good question. Ms. Hamlet, do you have any, can you speak that in the mic?
We can't do anything to core.
Well, he was specifically, I think, asking about the private property.
I'm talking about the private property which has I think it's residential. Is that necessary?
Ms. Hamlin?
So on the.
I don't think it's on.
Well, are you using, okay, try it now.
Here goes.
Thank you. On the land use plan that we added, there's no parcel data. So that leads me to believe that it is core property.
Well, and I would assume it was, but the private
Mhm.
property is also over there. Do we have anything, because that was added at the same time that the core property was added during the land use
I
change?
would love for our planner to come up and talk if that would be okay with our mayor.
Yes, it would. City planner, what wisdom do you have for us?
I'm not sure I have much wisdom on this, other than that parcel up there that was added. Was the other portion of this parcel already in the growth boundary? Is it part of this pink parcel up here that's shown as being added?
The only part that was added was the section where the boathouse is.
Which is core property.
And sits on property or core property. They lease that property or they somehow or another, they pay the core for the usage of the property. So I'm not sure how that arrangement is, but it's a commercial piece of property. And if it's brought into the city limits, we're going to obviously get sales tax off of it. But it needs to be zoned appropriately. And that's the reason I'm looking for some guidance here. I'm not sure what that looks like.
But if it's core property and they're leasing it back, then it's not.
Still commercial and we still get sales tax.
Our city attorney weigh in.
Core property, the core is leasing this property,
No, the core is leasing it to
leasing
a
their property.
Correct. There's actually a piece that is private, and then 50 foot from the bank of the lake is the core. And so while they use the boathouse is private and owned by a private individual, then the property down below it is actually core property, and they use that property as functioning part of their business. Same thing as the Cedar Creek Marina does on the other side of the lake. And that's the reason I'm saying, I mean, why would we not do the same thing on the other side as we've done on this side? It just makes sense.
How about this, John? Are we under the gun to pass this tonight, or
No.
Yeah,
would?
Okay, all right.
Would you be amenable? I'll make a motion to defer this one.
I second that.
1 minute. So we'll make a motion to
Sure.
second to defer this. That'll let staff get together and see what they can come up with on this, because it would be hard to vote for this on second reading anyway without some details. So we have a motion and a second to defer this for one meeting. Any advisement or any comments on the advisement of deferral? All right, all in favor of deferral for one meeting, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? We are deferred 11A for one meeting. Now I'll read 11B, which is an ordinance to rezone the property known as the Smiley property located at 815 John Wright Road, map 76, parcel 59, from RS 40 to RS 30. Motion and a second. Questions or comments? All in favor of 11B, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Was that an aye, Commissioner? Yes, okay. All right, it passed with a vote of 4-0. The next item is a 12A, an ordinance to amend the land use plan for the property known as Elliott's Reserve, located at 12440 and 12582 Lebanon Road, map 53, parcel 101, period 01 and 102, from thoroughfare commercial to mixed use. Before anybody makes a motion, was there any objection to reading 11A and B together? And I'll add B, which is an ordinance to rezone approximately 22.64 acres of property at 12440 and 12582 Lebanon Road, map 53, parcel 101, period 101 and 102 from CG to CRC to CMU PUD, and to adopt the preliminary master development plan for Elliott's Reserve. Is there a motion? Have a motion. Is there a second on this? And a second. 12A and B are on the floor here, or on the table, I should say. Any comments or questions from the commissioners?
We could get the representative.
Let's call for a representative from the project. Commissioner Justice, would you like the floor?
If I may.
The floor is yours.
Mr. Porter, we've had numerous conversations. I don't think you were present when we had the meeting out there, but the developer for Elliott's Reserve was there when they had the city meeting. Some of the complaints and some of the questions that we had were about drainage, and you had called them and told me that there was a fix there that not only fixed or took care of the Elliott's Reserve part, but also fixed the Nichols Vale part that was not addressed when it was actually initially built. Could you tell us more about that, please?
Sure. So what's being proposed at this point, and again, just to reiterate, this is the zoning package to move forward. FMDP still has to come through, site plans come through and be reviewed by staff to meeting all the regulations of City of Mount Juliet. This plan, as sits currently, our objective is to reduce the amount of water going towards Nichols Vale properties as a whole. Sorry, swing around here. The top, I'll say the top part of the screen where you see all the townhomes. Miss Wiley, you don't by chance have that exhibit up there, huh? That was fine. So specifically to address the drainage comments or drainage questions, just without showing everyone this picture as easily as I can, the existing drainage basin to that singular pipe that everyone is aware of in Nichols Vale that takes the water from this property, that currently is taking on 5.63 acres of the land on the Elliott Reserve Project property. As it is proposed, we are proposing that we will wind up taking about 1.5 acres away. So we'll go down to 3.71 acres of land would be going towards that singular pipe. So the ultimate goal is to reduce the total acreage of land that's going to land's worth of water that is going to be coming towards the Nichols Vale property. A. B, with the city's regulations and stormwater regulations as they sit today, we're required to reduce the 25-year storm event to below pre-existing levels or below existing levels. We frequently do above and beyond that, which at this point with this project, the pond that is shown, the detention pond that is shown, we expect to be able to reduce at least to the 50-year, if not the 100-year storm. So the total amount of water would be, the peak flows would be less than they are today. And C, which this is probably in my professional opinion, the kicker here to help this offsite problem, because again, we're not on the hook necessarily to come off, we're not allowed to come off our property to fix other properties per se, but in this instance, the single pipe that is up in that corner of the property that we have to connect to, we would be taking our detention pond, which is collecting all of our on-site water that would be going that way. We'll go through the detention pond, and then as it goes slowly released out of the outlet structure, it will be hard connected into that existing pipe and the existing storm network, therefore eliminating all of the surface flow water from coming through the backyards. And I believe from the several months of comments that the commissioners have shared with myself and from planning as well, that it seems like that row of houses along our back edge seems to be a large amount of the problem as far as water coming into those yards. So this project, and I'm going to scoot over and point for just a second, so I'll try to speak a little louder. So just to reiterate really quick.
Hey, excuse me. Is there a way you can do this with a microphone closer or something too? So
You want to borrow the pointer?
yeah. Because without the microphone,
It's not
the folks watching at home are just see moving lips.
Gotcha. So again, this piece here is approximately like where that pointer is going right now. Everything to the top of the page from there up, all of that water is going to that point about right there in that pipe. It's coming down into y'all's backyards and kind of slowly making its way over, or from what I'm understanding, maybe it's not making it over to that pipe and it's going through yards and sitting. The project as it sits right here, I know it's a little bit hard to see. There's a storm line right here down the front of this drive here that will collect the roof water, the road water, everything that we have on our property on this project. And it takes it back down this road, down this way, and into a larger detention pond here. All of the remainder of this back corner will go into a detention pond that is right here. This detention pond is what I'm speaking about, saying it will be hard connected. And when I say hard connected, I mean it'll go into a pipe underground and it'll go directly into the pipe that's existing in that parcel right there. Ultimately eliminating this whole basin, if you will, draining across the properties, and then instead it'll drain to the detention pond and underground and go through the system instead. So again, at the end of the day, the outcome of this project, and again, any project that would come on the site, thank you to the city's regulations, would improve the drainage issues currently on site by reducing the amount of water coming onto your property's surface flowing onto the properties. I hope, and again, I can keep going, but I believe that kind of hit the couple points as far as stormwater goes. So it's reduced, it's in a pond, and it's underground.
So I guess my question, I know Stephanie's here somewhere. I saw her. Okay. She had some videos and pictures that she showed me of water that was going through some sort of, it looked like a concrete culvert, if you would. It goes down. Are you telling me that culvert is going to be eliminated and she's not going to see any water coming through her backyard anymore?
That is the intent of the project. Again, that culvert itself is within a drainage easement that gives access to us, the city, anyone to come maintain and attach to it. Our goal would be to essentially replace that and hard connect to that pipe. Now, again, that goes back to the grading of that whole area. We'll respect the land and try not to, dirty everything up. But yes, the goal would be to connect concrete pipe to concrete pipe there, and it's sealed, and all the water's going straight through there.
And through the
not
city's
backing up.
storm drain, right?
Correct.
Okay. So now there was another question that was asked earlier about accountability. I will tell you, if it doesn't work, I'm giving her your personal cell number and address. Okay.
We will in turn give it back to the city plan. We will meet every regulation that is in place that, again, we above and beyond. Our projects usually go above and beyond if it's allowable. And I think this project is one that the pond is sized enough in that top portion to hold back again, I guess, detain more water than I guess regulation really requires us to, but we're able to do that. So I believe that it would be a good use of that land at this point, especially trying to help fix out some of these outstanding problems. So.
Okay. Blasting also was mentioned, and I'm not sure during the PUD process we have in the past. I know Commissioner Hefner's got that terminology. Is that from the Planning Commission? What number is that? 24. Blasting restrictions. All blasting shall be reduced from 2 inches per second to 1 inch per second, reducing the charge by 50% from the state maximum. Certified letters shall be sent to all property owners within 500 feet of the development's property line, informing those residences that are entitled to pre and post blasting inspections. The blasting monitor shall hold a contract with the general contractor and not the blasting company. That's a standard, and that's actually a third party that would be taking care of that. So it's not the city, it's not the developer. It's okay. All right. Is there anything that you can add to that to give these people some assurance that their home's not going to go up in a
I'm on
pile of
your
dust?
side there, Commissioner. I wish Commissioner Hefner was here because this is his kind of
Yeah.
whole movement. I'm going to hopefully reiterate some things that I've heard him say in the past, that this is that requirement, what you just wrote verbatim is our note number 38 on our site plan, specifying those rules and regulations be followed. But I believe Commissioner Hefner said before that what the city is now requiring, which is what you just read, is half of what the state actually legally allows them to do. So that's, on the city. So we're just following that, and we totally agree with that. And I think he has a couple extra pieces, which is in this note as well, as far as the notifying residents, and the contractor had to be, I believe, contracted directly with the super, not with the subcontractor. So they're kind of held more liable. And then obviously the seismic testing that goes on with all the blasting is more, I think it's regulated. And I could look at planning codes and ask them for more details. But again, that's what has been given to us as far as what you just read as the comment is what we show, and then we're following that, at least on this plan set. So,
okay. Is there, and it may be actually part of the ordinance that I have not read all of, but is there an area in there that specifies as far as trees? I know there were some concerns about particular habitat, and I know that TDEC has certain regulations that y'all have to adhere to, but are those specific to any potential habitat over there? And what are y'all going to do?
So the TDEC does have its own regulations and its own process as far as vetting projects, vetting land, and vetting habitats of potential inhabitants of that land, as far as endangered species and rare species and things like that. I believe, I know at this point, when we come through with the FMDP, again, this is just the preliminary master development plan. It's just for the zoning package. But when we come back through with the final site plans and final site design, it will walk through all the steps that TDEC requires amongst the city's requirements and everyone else that requires the pre-screening, the mitigation. If you have them, you have to mitigate them and follow all the regulations and rules of that part of the Tennessee or the TDEC land disturbance permits at that point. So at this moment, no, this plan does not go through TDEC to get those permits acquired, but at the FMDP level and site plan levels, when it gets turned back in, at that point, yes, they're in the construction plans process. We're required to get all of the appropriate permitting and follow all of the regulations that TDEC sets forth for endangered species.
All right. Mayor, I think Commissioner Juliet's got some.
Mr. Porter, you were saying that it's going to connect directly to the drainage pipe there. I'm assuming that's coming. The water's first going to hit your drainage basin. The drainage basin itself, retention or detention pond, is itself going to drain to that.
Yes.
So you're going to collect what is there. It's going to be stored up to the 25 years, then slowly released. So that's only going to leave what runs down on the homes now, the gap between, I guess, the basin, are basically through the buffer, I guess would be the correct term.
Yeah, so that we have the 20-foot buffer between the property line and our side, which will be vegetated at some level, again, as it's required. We will put a ditch through that, which will take any excess water, which would be very minimal off the back of the houses, but everything else that's landing and going into the yards is essentially what's landing in that tree line and going to the yards.
Okay.
The major issue from what we're understanding and seeing is that it is because there's about 5.8 acres draining straight into their backyards, which is.
And you're proposing as well to take 35% of that roughly and move it the other direction.
Yes.
So the other 65% captured in a drainage pond, then released according to those standards. And I'm assuming if the pipe, and we keep using the term pipe, but the pipe that is there to drain that area was sized for the 5 acres, we're going to be in spec with what's left with the remaining 65% through the detention pond.
Yes.
All right. Vice Mayor.
Go ahead. Did you
I
have a
was just going
question?
to add to the end of the add on to the part about where you said the water's going the other direction. I know there's a comment. I want to respond to them as well about water going towards Lebanon Road and flooding. I know other places down in that area as well. We're not taking that extra acreage away from Nicholsville and just dumping it into Lebanon Road. It is going through our other substantially larger detention pond, which is also, I'll say again, hard connected, for lack of better terms, into the storm system in Lebanon Road. So it's not releasing sheet flow or surface flowing water into the right of way at all either. So all the water leaving this property through the storm systems will be underground to the extent that it's not surface flowing onto people's properties or onto the state right of way.
We did have the issue with flooding down on Lebanon Road on that. I don't know if anyone here knows the answer or not, but I would be curious to know if that property did have equivalent to what we're talking about here with retention and detention in place, or if it was a direct drain to the where the so there was nothing where that property was flooded. So that was straight runoff onto the road. Gotcha. All right. Vice Mayor.
All right. So, as always, a new development, we start looking at the impact of our schools. Have you reached out to our school district and got some confirmation on the schools? So do we have any type of updates on that or no? Because I know we were right at 99%, 98% on 2 of them. So I just want to know where we are. Did the developer do that?
I will reach back out behind me.
Vice Mayor, I
I'm not
can
sure. So
I can point out
Can you point?
in
That'd be great.
in the packet here that the Wilson County School Systems provided no comments on the project.
No comments?
So at this point, they would have been sent the same package, I believe, as you all get. And again, to reiterate, moving forward in the construction level plans, once you get through the zoning piece, it typically would be whenever they would reach out and try to coordinate and see what could be coming down the line. Because again, at this point, it's just the rezoning of the property.
Yeah, I know, but at the same time, like right now, it seems to be, always it's an impact to our schools. Like once you change the zoning of the property, then it kind of helps push the project forward. And then, it's an after effect that we talk about these things. So, every developer that's come up here, I've always asked that same question is have you personally or your team personally gone and reached out to the school? I love the commercial side of things. Obviously this area is something that we need. There's a lot of demand, especially with all the other townhomes that have just been approved over the last, I'd say 4 to 6 months. We've had, I can tell you at least 3 that's already been approved in this area. So to add a 4th one is something that I'm not a big fan of townhomes, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I understand developers have the right to do what they want with their land as long as it's within codes, rules, regulations, right? So I'm just trying to figure out, how come you guys didn't go back to the schools and ask?
And at this point, again, this is one of the lowest density townhome developments that's been approved.
Still
in
affects the
ever.
schools though.
Understood. And I again made a note here that we'll go out and reach out to them directly again before the next reading. If we should so pass tonight, we will have a better answer about how the school system will handle the new amount of homes that this will bring.
Okay. And then the buffer, was that handled tonight? Because I know that was a discussion.
Actually, I had a question about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Vice Mayor, I do have an amendment for that as we progress.
Okay.
Do you have anything else, Vice Mayor?
Nope, that should do it.
Commissioner Mullally, do you have any questions for Mr. Porter?
Your other question?
Well, I'll come back to him.
All right. Mine's always lengthy. So from the Planning Commission meeting in June, just to confirm, specific drainage issues have not been identified, right? Because that's done later, basically. Yeah. There was also discussion on the vertical commercial at what percentage of COs for residential. I didn't hear any numbers on that. Did I just? No? Okay. So according to the way the plan's approved, you have to keep the water on your property and reduce the amount of runoff, which is what you were explaining up there at the top detention pond. So if you slow the runoff on the top portion, where exactly does it go? Does it go to the culvert over there?
No, so it's, if you, I have your clicker.
Yeah.
How do I go down the page? Come on. Go to a couple forward. That was fine.
So we're talking about the detention pond here. So if you're saying that all this water up here from, say, this portion will go to that pond, and we know that the ponds release water slowly. So where exactly does that water go once it's released?
So that's what we were discussing as far as that pond itself releases straight into the pipe that is on Nicholsville property.
The
currently.
culvert.
Yes, ma'am.
But they wouldn't get, what was it, 5 or 6 acres worth? They would only get.
Yeah, the numbers are 5.63 acres currently, and it would be 3.7.
3.7, but at a much slower.
Correct. So
controlled.
It's less acreage. Yes, it's less acreage, and it's a slower release of the water itself.
All right. Is that culvert big enough to handle that?
That would, yes, that is what, again, hard for me to speak on behalf of that particular development and how it was built, constructed, developed back when it was built. But yes, that would have been the codes back when that was they would have had to size that pipe for the current layout of Elliott Reserve's current existing land. And then the regulations as they stand today would require that the new project development, would have to release our water in such a way that it's less than that water that's currently going there.
All right, here's the tree. Now, this is a Google map, so I don't know how old it is, but as you can see, there's a tree line here behind, what's the name of the street? Montrose. And right here at Whitley and here. Well, as you can see, there's trees all the way around it. There was a little discussion at the Planning Commission about that. Would those tree lines be removed or would they stay? It doesn't look like on your plan there's enough room to leave the tree line.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. At the point of the tree lines and the vegetation that's there currently, any vegetation that is in that buffer already has to stay there. It's not physically able to be removed. I guess our buffer on our side of the property line will also be preserved to the extent possible as far as the grading goes. But even if it is disturbed at all, it is required to have a landscape. The city ordinance is a type D landscape buffer, which is, I'm going to butcher this, but it's about 108 bushes per 100 feet, plus I think it's 7 canopy trees and another type of shrub. I'm sorry, not a landscape architect, but another type of shrub. So it's a very dense buffer through that area. And I understand it's not the equivalent of a tall 100-year-old tree, but it's what we would be required to replace if we were unable to keep that existing line as it is. But again, to reiterate, the buffer on the Nicholsville property is already there, and we're not allowed to, or planning on disturbing that area at all.
So they have their own buffer.
Yes, ma'am.
Behind their houses on their property. But so the tree line that is here, right here, it looks like those townhomes are pretty close to the edge of the property. So is there room to leave the tree line plus add a buffer?
Yes.
There is?
If the new buffer and the existing tree line, is that?
Yeah, that's my question.
Yes. I mean,
As well as over here
correct. So
and right here.
Yes, and I'm sorry to repeat. I'm once we get out to that point, as far as I say construction, but at the level of getting our plans put on the ground and seeing where everything is, everything that is everything is possible to preserve is our ultimate goal, to preserve any amount of screening, again, between the two facilities.
All right, now on the studies, so to make sure I understand, say if this does get approved, that they have to go back to planning submit a site plan. And then at that point, is that when the studies are done? The traffic study, the environmental study, the geotech study, and the drainage plan or drainage study with a plan to manage?
Everything.
Sir,
Shane Shemmer, Director of Engineering, City of Mount
let me
Juliet.
get your name and address, please.
Shane Shemmer, City of Mount Juliet, Director of Engineering. All of the studies except the traffic study are done at the FMDP. Traffic study was already analyzed and approved as part of the PMDP process.
All right. Has that been shared with the public?
Upon request, it can be made available.
What was the results of the, I don't see our traffic commission. What was the results of the traffic study? The impact on Lebanon Road?
Reading my notes from my traffic engineer, he got married this weekend, so he's not here tonight.
Yeah, I wondered where he was.
The driveways have been aligned with the commercial properties on the opposite side of the north side of Lebanon Road, and TDOT gave their sign off on that. Formal approval of the driveway permits for this development will take construction plan review.
Shane, can you come with that?
What I was saying was they got their driveways on their site lined up to the north side of Lebanon Road. TDOT was good with that. Formal driveway permit application and approvals will take place at construction plans. And Lebanon Road is built as an arterial road to handle the traffic of these type of developments. And we're also proposing traffic calming on Sunset Drive as part of this offsite improvements.
All right. So let's say that an environmental study is done. There's 3 species of bats. Say, for example, one of the bats, I think one of them might be Indiana bat. Say if that's discovered, what happens then if they're found to be on the property?
We'll refer to Jake back on this one, but I believe that would be permitted through applicable agencies at the state, whether it be TDEC or Fish and Wildlife. So those would go through the state. It's not necessarily reviewed at the city level.
All right. So I guess I'm confused on, will there be one?
They are subject to obtain all their permits, and that would be part of their process at the state level.
So you're required to do that through the state?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And does this property have a karst on it or sinkholes?
No, none that have been found.
All right.
As far as I
Has
know.
there been a geotech study done?
No, not yet. Okay, I was going to say we haven't had. There's not been a walkable site yet to go to have the study done. No.
So,
Go ahead.
because there's been some talk in the emails about it containing a karst and sinkholes. So, what happens if that's, and are you required to do a geotech study before the last you are? So, what happens if one is found? What happens?
It just like the wildlife thing is found. There are statutes in place and regulations in place to mitigate said issue. So karst features just the same, depending on if it's a small sinkhole that just gets graded through, just gets excavated essentially, pushed around while we're doing grading, then it goes away and it's not an issue. If it's a larger sinkhole, there are again, we would work with the city and planning and staff to develop a better plan to avoid that area. And again, if it's in a foundation area for a home or a commercial building, then that area would be essentially, I say, off limits, depending on what it is. But you can, again, TDEC also has details and ways to mitigate as far as to fill and close and repair those sinkholes, or to even go further to make them, permit them as injection points to take water in if we needed to. But
So if some, say, deep sinkholes are found, wouldn't the blasting disturb those?
potentially, yes, any kind of large, I guess, explosions would make those larger. And again, if they're on our property, we would be at that point made aware of them. And then I'm just speaking out here, but if that is a case, we do find one, then that kind of opens an opportunity to take even more water from leaving a site above ground to directly into the subsurface water system. So it could be a good thing, but again, we haven't found anything yet at this point.
Okay. Well, I know a drainage study hasn't been done, but that's required also before with the plan to manage. Go ahead.
Shane, why don't we do this? Instead of this round and round of the podium, let's take a seat over here by our attorney, and let's put John in the other seat.
So the study, the drainage study will be done also. And then it looks like you kind of have a plan there, what you explained, that sort of looks like a plan, a preliminary plan, at least at this point. So what were you going to say, Shane?
Karst features, if they do come up, we work with the developers during construction to show that they've been remediated under the supervision of a geotechnical engineer. And if it does come about what he was talking about, allowing water to flow subsurface through karst, which is called an injection well, those are permitted by the state. But those type of conversations are had if they come up and treated on a case by case basis. That's all I just want to clear about that. But we do condition our FMDP approvals that karsts are remediated and make sure that they're in the plans as well and shown on any final plats as applicable.
Okay. As far as burning and blasting, even if, say, if this didn't get approved, they're going to build commercial there at some point. I guess it would be straight zoning. So either way, they're going to burn and they're going to blast. And by the way, as Commissioner Justice mentioned a while ago, the developers are allowed to blast according to the state regulations. So when we ask them to reduce their shots and everything and extend the perimeter for pre-blast surveys, they don't have to agree to that. We can't require it legally. So far, every time we have asked, the developers have agreed to it. So I just wanted that noted that we can't legally require that. I experienced this so much in my area with the burning, the ash. So whether it's just commercial or townhomes, there's going to be burning and the blasting. Alternatives would be the jackhammers or the hauling off the debris. But do we want that much more dump truck traffic going out on Lebanon Road, hauling this stuff off? So that, I think that's worth discussing at some point. I do have a few other things. So if you want to circle back around.
That's fine. If you want to yield the floor, we
Yeah.
can recognize someone else. I'd like to take this opportunity here. I would like to propose an amendment, and this is to amend item number 15 under planning, and I'll read the amended. And it's 15. The tree protection plan shall include protection measures for all the existing buffer and tree line vegetation in the Nicholsville subdivision. Have a motion? Questions or comments on the amendment? Commissioner Justice.
I will agree with this. I mean, the issue I've got, the tree line that is existing is not going to be in the Nicholsville subdivision. It's going to be on the Elliott side of that fence. Is that what you're talking about? Or did I misunderstand?
Let me just verify that. Ask staff where they're showing everything on the maps for that.
And if I may, let me explain further. Also, what I had down here was that the tree line, if there were trees, and because I'm going to have an amendment also on the buffer side. So, but if there were not trees, I think somebody out there had mentioned that they didn't have, Eric, one of them, that there were no trees in that section that separated your particular piece. And so that I was going to ask that additional trees be put in, and that the buffer is going to be a 10-foot buffer and a 10-foot no-touch zone combined on the Elliott
Okay.
side.
Is there anything in this that would exclude that?
No, I was just trying to get some clarification as to whether or not those trees that you're talking about are actually on Nicholsville side or if they're actually on the Elliott side.
We'll speak to that, John.
I'll give my best guess here, but according to the GIS here, which is not 100% right, on the eastern side, it looks like most of those trees are on the Nicholsville. On the southern side, it looks like there's some trees on this development property, and also that lot, that most western lot, is wooded completely now, so obviously there's trees there. So, yeah, I think that condition is, maybe clarify it, preserve existing trees on the perimeter on this development site to the greatest extent possible, or something like that. Because again, they have a buffer on the Nicholsville lots. That's not going to be negatively affected by this. That will remain. But I agree that if there's existing trees around the perimeter that are on this site, it wouldn't be a bad idea to save them if possible.
So, well, I was going to say, I do understand that sometimes due to grading, you lose trees on the side.
Correct.
But what I do not want, and Pete, I do not want just going in there for the ease of convenient, cutting every tree that can be. I've seen that before, and that's not the goal here. I hope everybody understands that.
That was just to speak on one of the last couple meetings that we've been at with the developer here, was adamant about saving as many trees as possible. We there's no intentions of clear cutting or for that matter, any kind of disturbance of trees that are not necessary at that point.
Yeah. All right.
Jennifer's got it.
I certainly can. So to add to number 15 under the planning, the tree protection plan shall include protection measures for all the existing buffers and tree line vegetation in the Nicholsville subdivision. Commissioner Justice, would you be amenable to just vote on this, and then I can give you the floor after this for yours? Is this anything in here going to exclude what your goals are?
Actually, it's part of what I was wanting to do with the existing tree lines.
Is yours going to refer to the Nicholsville side or the new?
It's going to be the Elliott side.
Okay.
So you want to do that now or wait?
Let's vote on this one, and then we'll hear
Okay.
yours. If
All right.
there's any conflicts, we'll see. Any other questions or comments on this? All right. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Amendment carries. Mr. Justice, would you like the floor on yours?
Please, if I could, Mr. Bronfman, we talked a little bit earlier about the buffer side of that. There's a 10-foot buffer, and then I was asking for there to be an additional 10-foot that is on a 20-foot Class D buffer. 10-foot of that would be the Class D. The other 10-foot would be the no-touch. All existing vegetation and trees would be left intact. Now, there's a section in there that borders the guys I was referencing earlier, their homes, that doesn't have those trees, and they're going to be stuck with people staring at in their backyard. Not a whole lot we can do immediately for that, but if we plant a certain type of tree and give it a certain period of time, then we can probably do something over a period of time that would satisfy. How do we word that so that doesn't happen? And also the other part of the question I left before you answered their question earlier, we have a 20-foot buffer, and then there's an additional 20-foot setback, or that 20-foot goes into the
buffer can be in the yard, in the setback.
Is that normally how that's handled?
Yes. Yes, because usually the usable part of the yard is the part that's outside of the buffer, because the buffer is, those landscape buffers are by design, no touch. They have to remain, they're required by code. So they're in a residential subdivision, they're in open space and they're maintained by the HOA, and they're the residents. Usually they're not on residential property, so they're in open space, so that they're not even authorized to modify them or to change them. So the buffer is always there. It's always going to be there. It can be in the yard. It doesn't need, the yard is for structures only. So you can put pavement, and you can put, the buffer can go in the yard.
I think, and Ms. Hamlin, you may know a little bit better about what I'm trying to get done here. Is there any input on this, on how we can?
Ms. Hamlin, do you have anything to add for us?
Well, I will say that the buffer will not be in anybody's yard for this, since it will probably be under the horizontal property regime.
So you're talking about 20-foot setback and 20-foot buffer, correct? And then the privacy fence.
What John is saying is the 20-foot buffer will be in the required yard, because these people will not technically have a backyard that they're buying. Does that make sense? They're in a townhome. You would only, this would only be buying
I understand what you're talking about. Yeah.
zero lot line. Absolutely.
Mr. Porter's got some.
I would just want to add to the definition of a D, but the landscape type D buffer has a fence requirement in it as well.
A what?
A fence requirement.
Okay.
That'll be on, it'll be a 20, correct, which it is a 20-foot. So we'll have Nicholsville property lines, 20 feet of the, what I would say, the densely vegetated buffer. And then on our property, a fence. I believe it's designed as an opaque style fence.
So it's an additional 10 feet, and then you've got the 20 feet.
So the buffer as it is we start at one of the Nicholsville folks. If you're at their house, you go from their house to they have a 20-foot buffer on their side of the property line. Then you come 20 feet into the property line. Then you have 20 foot of a buffer that we will be required to meet. And then you'll have a fence line at that edge nearest the townhome.
And how far from that fence line to the townhome?
From the fence line of the townhome, I believe we have 8 or I'd have to get my scale out here, but the nearest one is if you're looking at the buildings going from left to right, it's the third one. And it's right at 8 feet from that buffer line. So a total of 28 feet to the rear of that one. The rest of them are nearer 30, 32 feet away from the property line.
So back to the detention pond, I think you said that you had reduced that down to 1.9 acres. Is that correct?
No, we reduced it down to 3.7.
3.7.
Went down about.
So you reduced it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And you're talking about that the current ordinance is asking for the detention pond to hold a 25-year.
Please, Shane, the current ordinance as it stands today is 25 years, the 25-year storm event.
Okay. And if I ask for you guys to do this to a 100-year standard?
I'm not totally sure that that's a condition that can be added, but yes, as I was discussing with Commissioner Lally earlier, we typically go to that level anyways, and would be, at this point, I believe that is a possibility to do for this back pond.
Commissioner, what if between first reading and second reading, they come back with that in?
I was actually going to go ahead and ask for an amendment for that, if I could.
You have the floor.
Is that unreasonable to ask that?
I don't believe so. I believe that's what the new regulation that's coming out requires.
So I would ask at this point, then I would like to amend by saying that the detention pond on the lower half on the Nicholsville side would be brought to a 100-year standard rather than a 25-year standard.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and that's specific to that retention pond. Commissioner?
I I believe we're probably good to do with all of those. I don't,
If the developer's agreeable to it, I would recommend that the whole site detain the 100-year storm.
I'm sorry?
I would recommend all ponds on the site be detained for the 100-year storm event.
Okay, so that would be my motion then.
Are
to
you
amend.
agreeable? Any objections to changing that to all the site? So all retention ponds will be held to the 100-year standard. Okay. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor of requiring all detention and retention ponds on site be held to the 100-year standard, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, amendment passes. We're back on the ordinance as amended 2 times.
And one more, and then I'll turn it back over to Commissioner Laley. I was just informed that we're going to use some of their traffic calming devices. They're going to take care of the traffic calming on Sunset Drive. I don't know if any of you know, but when when Nicholsville was originally approved, it was approved and should have been, was supposed to be actually diverted so that the traffic was pointed going down towards Lebanon Road, and a right-hand turn onto Sunset Drive was not allowed out of Nicholsville. The plans that were originally submitted that I saw had that, and somewhere along the way it got changed, and so now we've got speed racers running up and down Sunset Drive, which is not designed for that kind of traffic at speeds that is not acceptable. And so we've been put in a position now where we're going to have to put in speed calming devices on Sunset Drive. We had a traffic commission meeting recently where those were approved, but I think only 2 were approved. Is that correct? Or can anybody advise Matt 2? Okay. And that was based on what information on the speed calming devices?
That was based on the speed study performed by the police department in conjunction with Public Works.
Okay, but at some point in time, I'm asking for 2 more to be put in, minimum of 2 more, so that we've got a total of 4 speed calming devices that are on Sunset Drive. Eliminate some of that traffic and people wanting to go that way. So, has anybody discussed off-site improvements with this developer? I noticed looks like what is deceleration lanes that are going into both properties or both sides of the property. Is that correct?
Plan shows those. I can confirm those prior to the second reading, but the off-site improvements were minimal.
Okay. What kind of traffic impact are we going to have from that location on Lebanon Road and the surrounding streets and schools?
I will have to get back with my traffic engineer and I can get you those questions answered of surrounding sites, but he did not seem concerned just in preliminary discussions about the impact of the site due to the fact that they were coming onto Lebanon Road.
Okay. Well, I'm going to assume that at this point, any kids in that development will go to W.A. Wright Elementary School and Mount Juliet Middle School and Green Hill High School, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Okay. So, I mean, as the Vice Mayor was asking earlier, talking about the impact, and I did have a conversation with Mr. Luttrell, who is our Director of Schools today, about that. But I would like to know what that potential impact is. I think it's, Mr. Luttrell said it was like 1.2 per unit. And there's not a whole lot of science involved in that. There's more specific statistics that can be gained, and I'd like to see what those are if we could. Not that we can do a little bit about it. The law precludes us from being able to put any of our resources to the county government.
I will, once Todd gets back into the office tomorrow, I'll have him do a write-up for you and we can have further discussions on that.
Thank you.
All right. I have just one other thing's housekeeping item. I believe it's been agreed to. I'd like to make a third amendment here to the planning expression, and that is to say the relocation of the dog park away from the Nicholsville subdivision and place the park in the open space south of the proposed townhomes. Yes. Any questions or comments on the amendment? All right. All in favor of the third amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Back on the ordinance as amended 3 times. Would anyone else like the floor? Commissioner Mullally?
All right. I do think this is a great opportunity for the commercial. There's a lot of commercial, which the city's been trying to bring in. It does have a multifamily component. You do tend to get nicer developments, nicer commercial and retail if it does have a multifamily component to it. Plus, under a PUD, we can include and or request, rental caps and blasting reductions. So, I mean, that was taken care of at the Planning Commission. If no multifamily component, we still get zoning. I mean, a commercial retail at some point with straight zoning. If and when, I don't know who to ask this, just a hypothetical question. How and or would the water runoff issues in the back get corrected? So if the front part only develops out as commercial, which is down here, and nothing gets built on the back part, whether it's y'all or another one, that might come in, would it have to be addressed? Typically, maybe I'm asking planning, maybe you can ask, would it have to be addressed if just a commercial project comes forth with no build out in the back portion? So since it's obviously got drainage issues back there, but they're not going to build anything on it, would the same standards still apply, or how would that work?
That's definitely not a question for me. I'm not
Okay.
positive how stormwater would be handled in that
Yeah, I
regard.
don't know who to ask. It's just a question. So I don't.
I think that would be that would determine on how the development will want to proceed in the back. If they want to masquerade it, not touch it. Because if they don't touch it, theoretically, the impact would be the same as it is today, as all the water up front is going in a different direction. But so that question would be handled by the developer on how they want to stage their construction.
So potentially, if that were to happen, there still would be 5-6 acres that are going to drain over, continue to drain over.
I would assume yes.
To Nicholsville. The sale prices are $600,000 to $800,000. Honestly, I'm not sure that this is the best place to put these. And we briefly talked about this earlier, would Elliott Reserve be designed to the old or new, recently approved stormwater ordinance standards?
It would be required to be the current standards, which is not the new one, but with the new condition that Commissioner Justice put on it, it increases that level to the 100-year storm. So yes, it is more than what would be currently required.
Okay. And you stated that your company already complies with the revised state law
Yes, ma'am.
that we recently just passed?
Yes.
Okay. Not crazy about the entrance to an exit to Lebanon Road. It doesn't have a light connection, but that is what it is. I'm just curious, and I know this is what the residents are thinking that live in Nicholsville, when Nicholsville was planned out, designed. What provisions, I wonder, and they wonder too, since it's the same company, what provisions for runoff from this property was that part of the drainage study, and was there a drainage study, which I assume there was. Yeah, there was. The emails stated that the detention ponds are too small in Nicholsville to handle all the water, and obviously the culvert can't take all that water. And last time we met, before we deferred, we talked about taking care of these drainage concerns on the front end of a meeting, and I know that's not typically how it's done, which is kind of scary to me, when you approve something and all that's done on the back end. That's just risky to me, but I know that's how it's done. I know the land use does not support mixed use at this location. Page 42 and 43 under findings from the planning department, number 3, the proposed rezone will have no adverse effect upon joining property owners unless such effect can be justified by the overwhelming public good or the welfare. So for me, that's what it comes down to, are these issues of your plan justified to, I don't know how to ask, is it, to me, it comes down to a justification. If your plan is going to take care of all these issues, and it being on the back end is kind of scary and risky to approve something you don't know. You don't have an answer for it. So to me, that's what it comes down to. In the schools, I'm typically not in support for the land use amendment, but I'm willing to pass first reading to get some of these things answered. And I would like to know from the residents too, if any of the stuff that they've heard tonight, your drainage plan, and all that, is that going to make a difference to them in their opinion? So I would like to do that and then get the answers for the school. What kind of impact does this have on the 3 schools? What is the capacity percentage at this point for each of those 3 schools? And by the way, I don't know if you know it or not, for the school system, of course, is handled through the county. Once a particular school reaches 85% capacity, the school then goes out and looks for land to get the ball rolling on purchasing new land in preparation for the number of students. So that's the process. The city can approve, but then the school also has a job to do once that school reaches 85%. So I would like to know those capacity numbers. So I'm willing to do that and pass it at first reading. And then I do want to know their opinion, if there's anything if they've heard that changes their mind, and these schools. So, okay, that's all.
Anyone else seeking the floor? Ms. Hamblin?
Oh, no comment.
Oh, thought you were asking for recognition. All right, I understand. Vice Mayor.
So appreciate all this back and forth. Obviously, to the homeowners that are in the audience, obviously there's a lot of discussion about this project. If it does pass tonight, which none of us know how we're going to vote until the time comes, but either way, we at least want to get all the questions that everybody put out there and make sure we at least cover them. So appreciate the developers' time tonight as well. Obviously, this being commercial and townhomes, and then of course residential. And I apologize if I missed it, but I'm taking a lot of notes up here as well. Behind all these businesses, we all know that it becomes a storage facility for some businesses because they're trying to bring stuff in, bring stuff out, becomes a little bit of a mess. Then you got your detention pond over here that's in that hard V, or let's say triangle. Okay. How are we going to be able to, obviously the way I'm looking at that, is that going to be the commercial responsibility of that hard triangle there, or is that going to be part of the common space for the townhomes? Just so I understand that one. That's my first question.
as far as the responsibility to upkeep that area, as far as
Yeah, who's responsible? Is that going to be the
Yeah,
HOA or
so-
is that going to be the commercial side?
HOA as a whole.
Okay, so what kind of buffer are we going to be putting behind these commercial buildings to be able to help divide that commercial from residential use there? Because I don't see anything like a tree line. I don't see any type of buffer there. You know, again, we want to be able to keep that nice family feel for these common areas. So, how do we put that there, or did I miss it?
No, there's, sorry, I'm peeking down here. There's roughly 60 feet of elevation change between those two.
Exactly.
from the
You'll be
front
looking
gate.
down into the
Right, you'll be
businesses.
looking-
So,
well,
yeah, exactly.
I know both sides. We say we're looking over it out into the distance, but yes.
No, we're
there's
looking
no-
down. So I'm just trying to think, is there going to be any type of natural vegetation there that we can be able to look at?
At this point, there is no planned buffers between the back of the commercial space and the residential space on top of the hill. Again, due to the fact that it's about 60 feet elevation difference and about 400, I'm going to back off and say, I believe it's about 350 feet between horizontal distance between the back and that first set of townhomes.
Okay. So I guess, somebody mowing that is going to be pretty difficult too. So that's why I'm trying to look for what kind of vegetation you guys will be putting there and any type of erosion issues, concerns, or anything like that. Again, I'm familiar with this, the area. I drive by it at least 6-7 times a week. So I know it's a heck of an incline up there. So how is that going to be looked at, especially when you're looking back down to the commercial side?
I mean, I understand your question as well. And at this point, there's no
There's no
buffer
system.
requirement and there's no buffer proposed behind there at this point. And I'm if you're looking for street trees along the private drive to the top of the hill just to block a little bit of the view, or plantings down towards the commercial, actually down in the commercial, down in the lots. I think we're amenable to those comments and discussions as far as what we can add to make those two things more attractive, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I'm not a subject matter expert when it comes to elevation and back of businesses, but I'm just trying to think, is there anything that we should be looking at as our team from the city? I mean, again, this is a little bit different project because we're bringing commercial and residential in on a hillside, and just what are your thoughts there?
To be clear, I might not be thinking of the same spot exactly that you're talking about, but along Nichols Vale, along where they got the detention on that slope there before you go down to the commercial, they are showing a 50-foot do not disturb.
So it is 50 foot of a
But it's
buffer
at
there.
the-
That's
It'll be at
not,
the top of the hill behind the houses, and then you're gonna slope down.
Apology. Yeah, sorry. I'm glad, John, you pointed that. There
Right
is a
here. Is that
buffer that is
correct? Right here?
proposed between Nichols
Yeah.
Vale and our
but
our
I'm asking
pond
for
and
right
area.
here.
It'll be at the top. Yeah.
Yep. That's what I was asking.
I'm
So,
sorry, I thought you were.
well,
between
no.
our
Actually,
projects as well.
me and you were on the same page.
Okay. That was
And
also
John
good.
actually added to it because I seen the buffer. And John, I appreciate you, buddy. I'm just because it sounds like that that topic was brought up earlier. It sounds like so. Is that something that we want to get added in, or what are you? I mean, again, or is it something that I'd like to get somebody's input on this? Because again, you're mixing commercial and residential, and there's got to be some type of dividing there, just so it's not an eyesore, but it also holds that that good feeling that people can actually go down there, go down to that common space is what you guys are going to be developing it at. So what are the thoughts here from our team here?
Go ahead, John.
All right. One of the waiver requests as part of this PMDP is number 4, request to omit landscape buffer between residential and commercial areas of the PUD.
So it is highlighted.
It is highlighted as a request, yeah.
Thank you, sir. All right. Just wanted to make sure. That's why I was trying to ask, where it was covered at, and we got some clarification. All right. Maybe that's all I have then.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Justice, did you have
I did, and I'm going to wait until we can talk to Mr. Marchetti.
Okay.
About that.
So if we pass on first reading, we'll consider it on second.
Correct.
Understand. All right. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Porter?
as long as everyone up is all answered, I do have a couple of comments or questions about the ordinance as it stands with the comments that came from, or the outstanding comments that from Planning Commission cycle. There's, and I want to read down this list of them all. They're basically comments that are either, I'll say, outdated or need to be removed just from ordinance contradicting itself, as well as what we've discussed with planning and staff as far as the grading. Everyone sees the grading on the site. So we're respectfully asking that we remove planning. You're reading down the ordinance list, planning numbers 3, 4, 7, 19, 22, 25, 26, and then Public Works number 6. And I'll briefly recap. Several of those have to do with adding additional sidewalks beyond required and connections to public right-of-way in certain areas that are physically at this point impossible as far as the grading goes. And then also 2 of them are on, we've got Planning Commission granted waivers to those 2 items. So they're just requiring an item that has been wavered out of at this point. So, but again, open to questions or no's as well.
I appreciate you bringing this up on first reading because I think I'm going to need a little time to go over these. It's a good list.
And I asked if we should send them, and it was brought said we need to bring it up on the floor to get it recognized. So I will gladly send a list and an explanation with them between now and second, if that would help.
That would be very much appreciated by myself.
Sure. So going down from the top of planning is 3, 4, 7, 19, 22, 25, 26, and then Public Works number 6.
Okay. Commissioner Justice, Vice Mayor, Commissioner Mullally.
Just one more confirmation. This right here is a turn in to the commercial from this entrance. Right. Okay.
And then we're also providing an access easement to the other property. That way they can utilize that access in the future if is needed as well, as one of the comments from planning staff.
I'm just looking through my notes as the silence here. Vice Mayor.
All right, just get some, and thank you to the homeowner that just sent me some pictures. So with that additional buffer, obviously there's vegetation back there. There's also going to be maybe some elevations. How is that going to be addressed for that additional that was passed tonight? So that 20% buffer right back here, I just want to make sure. So this back here, if this opens back up to 20 more additional feet. So if we open that up, is there going to be any hazards that are going to be in here that could be left to the homeowner's responsibility? So if we take down that fence and we take that fence back to increase those additional, let's say, footage for the existing homeowners, is it going to be left up to the developer that's going to be responsible to, let's bring it back to, let's just say, a yard standard? Or is there going to be any type, because again, I'm thinking of safety here, right? If we take down a fence and let's say there's already some different elevations back there, some gravel, some natural obviously, like, we would want to leave the natural vegetation there. We don't want to all of a sudden add additional burden on the homeowners. But if it is discussed where, there is some elevation change or anything like that, is there any concerns there from the developer or from our team there?
I will state that this project we will do absolutely zero work on Nicholsville property. If they have a fence in their backyard, it stays.
Okay.
If the city wants to go through the process of eliminating that requirement on them, they choose to take the fence down, that is
on them. Perfect.
Yeah, it's not on us
All
at
right.
all.
I just want to make sure, because I wasn't for sure if the fence comes down and then all of a sudden, does it need to come down? Or, because I know there was a discussion behind the scenes here, whether or not that fence needs to come down in order to be able to maintain or get an easement back there for maintenance. Because I'm thinking about, here in about, let's say 20, 30 years, when those trees start, let's say, getting past their life expectancy, or a good storm comes through here, is there going to be an easement to get through there and do some type of maintenance, let's just say,
So
right?
the buffers themselves are PUDEs, which is a public utility drainage easement. So the city has all authority to go into those areas. At this point, though, the fences we're talking about are a requirement of the buffer. So again, I know we all want the fence on our side so that we can add that buffer. But if the homeowners themselves and the city so chooses to allow it to take the fences down on the Nicholsville property, at that
It's
point,
left up to them.
It's up to them to take it down and maintain whatever's inside that buffer.
I just wanted to make sure that was cleared. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Mullally.
Clarification on the number 22 that you request to be removed.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that primarily because of the brick column?
Yes. The
All
second
right.
sentence in that one. Yes. There's a waiver that's been approved. I'd have to read which one it is.
All right, but what about the 2-car wide driveways at minimum 22 foot? Because that's a part of the same one.
I could be, and I'm going to ask planning. I believe that's already required. So it's a condition on top of an already requirement of the city's regulations. But we do meet that code as it stands.
Okay.
Already.
It probably wasn't labeled, that's why I put it in.
Okay.
I'm going to ask this question to staff here. We got in the staff report here, we've got the 7 waivers that are listed in here. Do we need to take action to codify these here tonight? Because I'm seeing everyone listed as staff supports.
Yes, planning commission is a recommendation on those items. It's up to the board of commissioners to accept them or not, so.
Just don't want to double the work. So make sure before I make a motion, I am going to make a motion on these 7 waivers that they be adopted. And I'll be happy to read them. Just make sure we're on the same page. Request to use an ornamental boundary fence in lieu of the opaque fence. The second one, and that was listed as staff supports, not applicable for the sale development. The second one is request to allow up to 3.6 acres of disturbance of slope exceeding 20%. Staff supports. The third is to request to allow 20 feet of building separation in lieu of 30 feet due to the buildings being sprinkled. It's listed as staff supports if the fire marshal supports, and we'll need a confirmation on that one. The fourth is request to omit the landscape buffer between the residential and commercial areas. Listed as staff supports. The fifth is to request to omit the masonry columns between the garage doors as shown in the rendering, and that's listed as staff supports. Number 6 is the request to deviate from the residential material standards as following: 50% masonry, 50% secondary materials on all homes, listed as supported. And 7 is the request to deviate from the material standards of the commercial buildings as follows: 65% masonry, 30% masonry, 35% secondary materials, listed as supported. Yeah, 65, 35. And did you have anything you wanted to add to those?
No, thanks.
Do we have anyone here that can speak? Because number 3 is qualified as saying staff supports and fire marshal supports. I haven't made them. I'm just reading them. I'm not seeing anyone from the. All right, any questions or any comments on any of these? I'm gonna make a motion that we adopt 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm gonna omit 3 from that, waiting on confirmation from the fire marshal. So 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. My motion is that they be adopted.
Second.
Have a second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor of the adoption of the 6 waivers, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries. That puts us back on to 13A as 4 times amended. Any other questions or comments? Vice Mayor.
All right. Again, I'm getting a lot of not a lot, I'll just say some good communication behind the scenes. So, so with that, that culvert / where you guys are gonna be connecting, there's gonna be a concern there, I guess, with two properties that they have, already, let's just say senior growth trees that are really close to their fence line. If you guys are gonna be cutting back into that and basically reconnecting, there could be some possible damage to the root system and cause life of that. Would you guys put that on your list to make sure that we at least accommodate that and that there is no concerns for these homeowners for their fence line, as well as any particular damage for those two properties? I'm asking for the address currently right now. So
At this point, I have not been on the properties of the neighboring properties to see what is there.
What's there,
not
yeah.
our property, but yeah.
well, next reading, obviously, if this passes tonight, we'll make sure that it's highlighted for second reading. But hopefully we can get some pictures of the backyard. I'm
That would
trying to
be-
pull it up on maps, but I'm waiting for an
I was
address.
like,
So
and I don't know which homeowner it is, but if you would
Yeah, I don't wanna-
feel free to shoot it into them, and then you can
Yeah.
share it with us. Because the last thing I do is just walk out on people's properties to tell them what
Absolutely.
I'm going to do with it. So yeah, at that point, we're going to connect hard to that pipe. If there's a tree, if there's a
yeah,
tree,
there
in
we
the
go.
middle
There's
of
two
it-
people in the
You got
audience.
two volunteers right
Yeah,
here.
two volunteers. Thank you. If you guys could send me over your addresses as quick as possible. All right, thank you.
If there is a tree or an obstacle there that needs to come down to connect to that pipe, then the options, unfortunately, is take a tree down or let all that water surface flow into there, which seems to be the problem anyways. We would be reluctant to damage anyone's properties, but again, developers very open to working to solve these solutions, not make them worse or to cause anyone any other heartburn.
So through this process, if you get a passage on first reading, we're skipping a meeting. This is just make sure everybody's on the same page. We will skip the next meeting. This will come back on the first meeting of September, as long as we follow the normal plan for this coming through. So that would give you roughly a month. So can you, just assuming you can get with these homeowners, or would you be willing to get with these homeowners, assuming they're going to let you on the property, and come up with a mitigation plan or a plan forward for that.
Sure.
Okay. Any questions, Vice Mayor?
No, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? We ready to vote on the ordinances on 12A and 1213 as 4 times amended? I'm sorry, 12A and 12B as 4 times amended. All in favor of 12A and 12B as amended 4 times, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those carry on first reading. So those two carry on first reading. If the current plan is as stated, this would come back in roughly a month's time for the first meeting in September for consideration on second reading. And then the equally as important is this is a preliminary master development plan. A final master development plan would go before the Planning Commission for even more scrutiny, I think would be a proper way to put that. All right, we'll move into the new business portion of the agenda, which is 13A, an ordinance to rezone the property at 4470 Old Lebanon Dirt Road, map 77, parcel 26, from OPS to RS 40. I'll make a motion. I heard a second from Commissioner Mullally. Any questions or comments on 13A? All in favor of 13A, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I believe that passed by a vote of 4-0 on first reading. 13B, which is an ordinance to annex the South Green Hill Road and right-of-way located at South Green Hill Road from the northern property corner of 6105 Fremantle Court to the northern property corner of parcel 7308.4 in Wilson County, Tennessee, located within the city's urban growth boundary.
Motion.
Have a motion. Is there a second? Motion is second. 13B is on the table. Is there any discussion? All in favor of 13B, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. 13V, I believe, carries by my vote or my count of 3-1. That will come back again to us for second reading. 13C, which is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, Section 2822, to add the fire chief as a voting member of the Traffic Commission. Hearing a motion
Second.
and a second. Any questions or comments? Yeah, let's go here.
Excuse me, the vote that was 3-1, who was the nay?
I was the nay.
Okay.
All right. 13C is on the table. Any questions or comments on it? All right. All in favor? Yes, sir. Shane.
The genesis of this ordinance was communication that Commissioner Justice and I had about a low construction equipment being unloaded on North Mount Juliet Road.
Sir, I think you're on the wrong ordinance.
Sorry.
Any discussion on 13C? All in favor of 13C, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 13C passes on first reading. Next item, which is 13D, which is an ordinance to amend the City of Mount Juliet City Code to allow any construction or commercial vehicles. Let me start over on that. An ordinance to amend the City of Mount Juliet City Code to not allow any construction or commercial vehicles to block streets, roadways inside the city limits from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion is second. Commissioner Justice, this is under your sponsorship. Would you like the floor, sir?
Yes, sir, please.
You have the floor.
This comes from actually traffic background. When we have our state road, which is Mount Juliet Road and Lebanon Road, both state roads, state highways, and we have construction work going on. I do know that in Metro Nashville, they have an ordinance that does not allow for that construction traffic to block any lanes of traffic during the rush hours. So it's from 7:30 to 9 in the morning, and from Shane, you can correct me on this, but I think it's 3 to 5 in the afternoon.
So to the Public Works Director about this, a couple of caveats we would like to add to the ordinance. The first one of which that the inspector has some discretion on when to advise the contractor to get out of the road, i.e. if they're finishing up a paving job, they got one truck left, it's 2:59. Doesn't make sense to get them out of there if they've got one truck left. Get it in, get them out. We don't want to have development having asphalt go to waste and getting the project done. So we would like to have some room for inspector discretion. And a question we have and something that we would like to be applied is that the ordinance not apply to city projects just due to cost. And that would increase the cost of work being done. But then again, there would be inspector discretion on times to make sure that they're not out there. So
let me clarify if I may. You're saying that the city would not be held to the same standard as the private developers, correct?
we're asking for that, if it is or not.
I think the city should be held to a higher standard than private developers, not a lesser standard. I understand what you're asking for due to the cost. I do get it, but I'm not, typically, and I have worked those jobs where you go out and you're standing out in the middle of the road trying to shut down a lane, and it comes up on 3:00, and Metro Nashville gives no quarter. You will be out of the road or you will be immediately fined. And you don't back talk them. You don't talk about it. You don't pass go. You don't collect $200. You get out of the way because they will not allow you to block traffic. And I'm inclined when Mr. Martin and I both had talked about this. I understand that there may be some needs, but those are going to be very few and far between. And what I would suggest is that if there's any, my suggestion would be if there's any leeway given, it would be given by the city manager. It would have to come from him rather than anybody else. I'm not sure. Do we want to make that
I think if the way the ordinance is currently written, that would have to be codified to grant that. our city attorney has some thoughts as well.
Just real quickly, we already have a statute 2876 that says that shall be unlawful to obstruct the flow of vehicular traffic on streets or public highways within the city without first providing notice to the city's chief of police with intent to do so. So we've got a statute that says this already, not just during rush hour, but all times. And then the other thing is, it says construction or commercial, so that's UPS, FedEx, et cetera, et cetera.
That's actually intentional. But that was brought to our attention that we've had numerous of these trucks at FedEx, Amazon, and they're blocking the roadway. I know that on numerous occasions I've had to deal with going around these vehicles. And I do know for a fact that an ambulance or a fire truck could not get around them while some driver has jumped out of this truck and ran up to.
Talking about delivery trucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it also talks about not being able to obstruct the flow of traffic, impede the flow of traffic, but it does not sit down, especially during those hours. And I'm pretty sure that every time that I have seen that happen, it is not, they've not gotten prior approval. They just go do it. And there needs to be some teeth into this. And what the prior or what the existing ordinance is, there's no teeth in it. So we've got to do something to, there's no way on earth that we allow a lowboy tractor to be unloading in the middle of Mount Juliet Road after 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we're talking right beside the middle school. We had cars all over the place. And that's not the first time I've seen it.
And, that was the way that the ordinance struck me as the intention was to stop that car haulers unloading in the turning lane.
The turning lane doesn't bother me. It's to block a flow, to block the flow of traffic by a actual travel lane. Turning lanes aren't considered travel lanes. They're suicide lanes. That's what they call.
I don't know if everyone's familiar with that term, but
yeah. So, I mean, if there is a suggestion as to how we handle this, then I'm all open on the suggestions, but I am tired of seeing the people. We got enough traffic problems without creating additional ones.
I would suggest this, that we go ahead and work it, go ahead and pass this. We know what the intent is, and then let's make it an amendment to section 2876 so they be read together. One says block, the new one says block the road. No construction or commercial vehicle shall be allowed to block any section of the street. The current statute says obstruct the flow of traffic. I think they say the same thing, but
however it's addressed, it needs to probably be very specific as to the flow of traffic, not impede the flow of traffic in a travel lane. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's got to. I mean, it really has to say that it will not impede the flow of traffic in any travel lane.
Currently, there's no limit on 7 to 8 or 3 to 5. The current statute says you can't do it, period, without checking with the chief of police or getting a permit. So
my concern about saying it this way, that it is prohibited from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., is there's almost like it's implied that it's approved during the other times. And I know it's not the intention, but that's...
I mean, we can actually add in there that any other times would have to be approved by the Public Works Director and the city manager. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. So your recommendation is pass this, and this would be first reading. So you would come back with a recommendation for some changes for the amending of the code 2876.
Yes.
Is everybody? Yep. Okay. All in favor of Commissioner?
Now, does this apply to residential and commercial?
Yeah, the way it's written, yes.
I mean, commercial is what we've got on the, is it not?
Well, it says commercial vehicles, but it doesn't.
Commercial
talk about
vehicles, is that what you're talking about?
zoning? No, I'm talking about the zoning, the areas, residential neighborhoods.
No, that would be any road. We've got school buses during that time is what I'm looking at more than anything else. 3 to 5. We have people coming home from work during those times. Those are drive times. So just during those times is the reason I put it 7 to 9, 3 to 5.
Well, my concern specifically, I guess, residential development. For example, I'll say Baird Farms. Now that really was a nightmare. There was so many, construction equipment parked on the sides of the streets, and that really was a nightmare. Today I went over to Nicholsville. They were building a house. There's commercial vans right there where they're building the house. There's literally nowhere for them to park except the street. So I have concerns about this. I mean, where would they move their vans?
And it's cold and callous as that may sound. I really have no concerns whatsoever. If that vehicle is blocking the roadway to the point that an emergency vehicle cannot get through, somebody could die. And that's my concern is not for allowing them to park and be convenienced. My concern is to make sure that, the vehicular traffic on the main arteries of our roads during those peak times of traffic are open. And at the same time, school bus traffic can get through.
Well, they weren't blocking the traffic or the flow of traffic, but they were building the house.
Could a school bus get through?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it shouldn't be an issue then. It's the flow of traffic is what we're talking about. Impeding the flow of traffic. There's actually a state law that even says that you can't impede the flow of traffic. So,
Well, can we go ahead and change that now instead of blocking to say impeding the flow of the traffic, which I think the original one says?
Instead of impeding, it should be obstruct the flow of traffic,
Obstructing.
which means no one can get through.
Right. So
Impeding could be defined as having to
pull around
or something versus blocking.
okay. So can we? Well, I'll make an amendment if we go ahead and change that now instead of saying what yours says, which I think is blocking. Just rephrase it as obstructing the flow of traffic, because to me that makes more sense.
well, I think probably what Mr. Marchetti is saying is that go ahead and pass it tonight and then come back with those changes in another version so that we can amend it and create something a whole lot better on the next reading. Is that my understanding what you said?
We can do that, but it'll include the obstructing language versus blocking.
So where it says
why
blocking,
not? Well, I don't understand why just pass something to get it through. That just sounds like Washington. Why not defer and then get with what the original says and then alter it that way and then bring it back?
just what he recommended. So
yeah, I don't see any. The only problem with deferral is it just delays it roughly 2 weeks from passage. But I've got no objections to that if that was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the way it's written. So
yeah,
it's what?
It's amending city code, so it would have to skip that meeting.
So it's going to be actually 6 weeks instead of
6 weeks instead of 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd rather get it right than just get it done.
well, me too.
I agree. I have no
I
problem.
motion to defer and then
I'll second the motion to defer.
Okay.
Is there any questions or comments on the advisement of deferral? All right, all in favor of deferring one meeting, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? 13D is deferred one meeting. The next item is 14A, a resolution approving the award of the construction contract for the mass grading of 620 Clemens Road and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract.
motion.
Any questions or comments on the resolution? Vice Mayor, you recognized?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, because I thought there was some opportunity where we were going to have some of our staff that was going to be able to assist with some of this for cost savings. Was that not something that was discussed, or where are we at with that? Or was there any opportunity there, or no? This is not going to be a cost savings.
Mr. White, you're recognized.
Thank you. Matthew White, Public Works Director. No, we don't have the amount of equipment to do it efficiently. We can do it more efficiently with a contractor.
Okay. I just want to make sure, I mean, if it was brought to us as, an opportunity for savings, and then we get to this point and we come back and say it's no longer a opportunity, what changed? Because obviously somebody thought we had the equipment for it. So unless they're going to go on tn.gov and buy a big old dozer, I wasn't for sure where we were going to get to begin with, but
As far
I
as
thought
me and
somebody
my
was going to rent
staff-
one.
Between me and my staff, it's always been an intention to bid this out to a contractor.
All right. No big deal. I just want to make sure that was an opportunity to ask. Thank you.
All in favor of 14A, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 14A carries. The next item on the agenda is 14B, which has already been passed as we moved it to the beginning of the agenda. 14C, a resolution of the Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners, Wilson County, Tennessee, supporting the agreed floor plan with the Mount Juliet Senior Activity Center.
Motion?
Motion is second. That item on the floor. I'll just quickly want to say, as a sponsor, I want to thank staff. I want to thank the members of the Mount Juliet Senior Activity Center for coming together and working on this. You all deserve to be commended for your efforts to get this and come to an agreement and bring it to us so that we can take some action here tonight. Any other questions or comments? Vice Mayor.
I just figure since they stuck around so late, we at least got to get Mr. Lee up here. I got a quick question for you, if that's okay, sir.
Mr. Lee, you recognized?
Rocky Lee, Parks Director. Yes, sir.
All right, buddy. So did we get everything what we need in order to make sure that this is an easy transition for back and forth when it's going to be used by the city and your team and then back to the senior citizens?
Yes, sir. We got exactly what we're looking for. What would be most beneficial to the parks and to our senior citizens. I'd like to thank Jeff Rowlett and Rob Porter for their due diligence on this. And everybody's worked really hard, but I think we're going to be able, overall, we're going to use this building mostly as a flex building where we can both share it and come out and be beneficial to the city, get the most bang for our buck.
So did we get that wall taken down that said it could not be taken down just because it's a drywall wall? It's not a load bearing.
Yeah, we're going to get that wall taken down.
All
Yes,
right. So we're going to be able to make sure we got enough staging for our father-daughter dance and all that good stuff. And
Yes, sir.
And son and mom, dad, get
All-
together, whatever we're going to do. We
All
gotta
of
make
our
sure it's fun.
events, we'll have plenty of room.
We will have
It'll
it.
be good.
Okay. And then the last one, which will be, did we get it worked out when it comes down to the, I guess the partnership of I guess it was the access, because I know that there was some concern there about access. With the last meeting that we had, there was some concerns there.
Access, yeah, the access will be moved. The main entrance will be to the, I guess, what is that, the south side of the building that
Mhm.
used to go into the courtroom.
Okay.
That will now become the main entrance to the building. Yes,
So you're okay with all that new?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Just want to make sure that we covered that because I know that was on my notes also.
Right.
So
Yeah.
thank you, sir. That's all I got.
Thank
Thank
you,
you again
guys.
for everything you guys do.
I appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of 14C, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? 14C carries. And that makes some people I see happy back there. So thank you all for your efforts on that. Last item on the agenda is 15A, an appointment. This is to the Stakeholder Committee for the Roadway Safety Action Plan. And this is an appointment. If he be willing, I would say with this having the safety aspect of it, I can't think of anybody better, and this is appointment of one of the commissioners to nominate the vice mayor for this.
I'm kind of like lost without words, but hey, I guess I'll take that nomination.
And if you need so, I don't know if there's any harm in delaying a couple of weeks. Is there any harm? The appointment. Okay. Good.
Okay.
What does that person actually do? What is this?
I was going to find out that afterwards because
Yeah,
I thought
don't-
I think I was blindsided,
well,
but
let's-
hey,
Let me explain
yeah.
something to you.
Let's get
Don't accept it till I
Mr.
take
White
it.
up here to explain. I don't think this has been explained, so I'm gonna give you the floor and let you explain this.
If you recall a few meetings ago, There was a lot of that DEI talk. We got the grant to do a safety action plan for all our roads in the city,
Yes.
where we take a detailed look at all the accident history over the last 5 years.
You say
Fine.
accident?
Yeah, like traffic accidents. Yeah, yeah. We try to find hot spots and try to identify what's going on and look for solutions to make that portion of the road safer. So we're going to, all of our city streets, we're going to study this. And so the stakeholder group's going to give input throughout the process of developing this plan. We're also going to be taking a look at our codes and ordinances to see if there's ways to improve the way we build things to make our streets safer as new developments come through and build new infrastructure. So it's a stakeholder group. It's going to be comprised of police, fire, myself, somebody from Wilson County Schools, a BOC member, a planning commission member. There's a couple others, like 12 stakeholders that'll be, and we'll have probably 4 meetings throughout the next year or so, just to get these stakeholders will give input as we develop this safety plan. That's the purpose.
Well, I apologize if you knew nothing about this.
Knew nothing about it, but so quick question. So the meetings in the mornings, afternoons, or in evenings?
We'll make it accommodate everybody, so probably evenings for those who have other jobs.
Okay. So my question would be back to the mayor. Do you want to still keep this nomination?
Actually, that's just a nomination. I mean, it's up to you if you want to accept. If not, due to time constraints, we definitely understand that. But
Yeah.
we do need a commissioner to participate in this.
Well, I mean, before
we have one absent. I mean, we could.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, not only that, well, so this is the thing. Okay. So, I mean, like we do have a subject matter expert sitting beside me that's been a police officer for many years, dealing with traffic studies and dealing with everything. Now I deal with safety and operations and a lot of, commercial buildings and so forth. So we do have two, I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but but we do have 2 good individuals up here. Now I'm going to ask Commissioner Justice, would you want to consider that, and
If it's up to you, I mean.
do you have time and would you have the
No, I've got plenty
commitment?
of time. That's not a
Mayor,
problem.
would you be okay with that?
I would be okay. And if you, it sounds like you're declining the nomination.
I think I'm going to decline it
and
just
you-
because I've got a subject matter
You're
expert.
the safety guy.
Yeah. Listen, I'm big on safety, and right now I am actually driving safety when it comes to our departments with your other team members. But if we have a subject matter expert here that's dealt with traffic and as a law, officer, that would be great as well. So I don't want to, slow down the process. So if that's something that can be done,
Well, did I hear a nomination of Commissioner Justice?
I would say yes. I would. I highly recommend a nomination for Commissioner Justice.
Okay.
Is there?
The other shoe to fall.
Go ahead. Will you accept that nomination?
Yes, if that's what y'all want to do. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other nominations? Not, I will make a motion to cease nominations. All right, hearing no objections, nominations are ceased. We have one person in consideration, so I'll put forward for a vote for Commissioner Justice. All in favor of nominating Commissioner Justice, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And you are duly appointed. And with that, we have reached that place on the agenda, which is called adjournment. Without objection, if there's no objections, we will adjourn. Hearing none, we're adjourned.